We're the United States of America. Unity and oneness is what we're made of. One nation under God, it's plain to see. We're showing the whole world what a country should be. United we stand in America, hand in hand in America. Together as one in a land that we love. United we stand in America.
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, July 9th. It is a beautiful day in Springfield, Southwest Missouri. We are live at the Axe Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. This is show number 200. Oh, we would be a lot older. And I'm old enough already, so I don't want to do that. No, show 214. And I'm Lynn Morris.
And I'm Dr. Mary Byrne.
Yes, you are. And we have a great show today. We have a special guest. I tell you what, I didn't know anything about Bill until last night, and Dr. Byrne had sent me a whole bunch of stuff in very tiny print.
That's not my fault.
And so, and I usually have my wife try to print it out and blow it up a little bit, but I didn't take time. I just slowly dissected line by line, blowing them up and taking some notes and stuff like that because I was intrigued in what you had to say. Uh-huh. And so, anyway, so our special guest today is Bill Mundhausen. And Jim Whining. So are you from Germany?
I'm a first-generation American.
Okay.
My parents both came from Germany.
Well, Jim Whining, our CEO of Axe Ministry, he's also a lawyer. He's also a world banker from Germany, his family. Uh-huh. And so when I told Jim last night what our show was about today, he said, I think that guy must be a German guy. I said, yeah. I said, I think you're going to like him, so you need to pay attention. So Bill, you have, and you're part of membership of Conservative Americans Club,
right,
which is Mary's the president of it.
Right.
And we started that several years ago. Mary started it.
Well, no, it was the Wades who started it.
Alec and Jenny Wade did first, and we had
meetings. They took over another ministry, and they said, "Will you lead the group?"
Right. Right. So Alec and Jenny Wade, and they're down in the Sparta, Missouri area, and they started. We used to have the meetings at my corporate office in Ozarks, Missouri, and Mary was there, and I was there, and then we took it to Springfield when she became president of it. And I used to go to the meetings. You haven't seen me.
Well, they were in your building. It was easy.
But even after that, I went to the meetings up there in Springfield that you had until I had my accident a year ago, and I'm finally getting back to all my routines again. Mm-hmm. So eventually I'll be back to be with you guys again too. So in a way, that's how you guys knew each other, right, and stuff like that. But I'm intrigued about your nonprofit, the Orion Center. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly, it looks like to me, I could be wrong, but what I read last night was it looks like it really has an education component to it.
We were founded as an educational organization.
Okay.
But step back and learn a bit about Bill's history. Okay. It's very interesting. Why don't you start with you and Peggy in California?
Okay, I didn't read any of that last night. So
no, he didn't tell you, but I know.
Okay, so let's go into that because I think the people, Bill, right now, you're having people watching us in all 50 states and around the world. Yeah. So we got people watching, and we got a great audience.
No pressure.
But we try to teach them and tell them about hope and faith
And being a difference maker.
And being a difference maker. You are a difference maker. You and Peggy are difference makers. We have never had anybody on our show that's not a difference maker.
Okay.
And even though you'd think that there'd be a lot of them out there, there's not as many as they need to be. And I always encourage people, if you see something here, something that Bill says today, you might be able to emulate some of that and start that in your hometown, somewhere wherever you live.
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about California.
You want me to go back to Margaret?
Yeah,
and me?
what brought you to Missouri? Because God guided your steps. There's no
Sure.
question about that.
Well, I started in New York. That's where I'm from.
Okay, let's go back there.
And so I started working for a company in New York, and we quickly ran it into the ground. And they transferred me to Brainerd, Minnesota. They transferred me in January. It was 30 degrees below zero.
Whoa.
It's like that movie, New in Town.
Yeah, yeah. I was with the guy who hired me, and we were driving up the back road to get from St. Cloud to Brainerd, and there was nothing there. It was just white with the occasional farmhouse. And like I said, 30 below zero, that's not something that normal people are used to. But I got used to it after a while. It's a dry cold. It's kind of like Arizona being a dry heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I met Margaret. She used to be called Peggy.
Okay, used to.
She used to be called Peggy, but that was her childhood nickname. But when she moved to
Somehow
Springfield...
I heard it, and it stuck with me.
It did stick.
Yeah.
When she moved to Springfield, she wanted to become an adult.
Oh, okay.
So now she is Margaret.
I think adulthood's overrated, but, you know.
Yeah. I used to be Billy when I was a kid, so I outgrew that.
Okay.
So anyhow, we met in Brainerd, and that's where we married. And from Brainerd, we were transferred to St. Louis, from St. Louis to San Francisco, from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And I had most of my my work career in Los Angeles. And we decided when the kids got to be a certain age, we didn't want to raise them in LA. So Margaret traveled out to the Midwest and found our place at Lake of the Ozarks, and she bought it, and we moved there.
Okay.
So
That's a pretty place. Did you have a home right on the lake?
we did at first.
Yeah.
For the first few years, we were right on the lake, and we had a boat and did all those things. Had a small mobile home park on the lake also. So that was how we supported ourselves. And then we just got tired of being on the lake. I had a 10-well dock.
I didn't know that could happen, but
Yeah, I had a 10-well wooden dock back in the day. And so the first week we were there, we had a huge storm, and the 10-well dock broke loose from the shore.
okay.
So here I am, having moved there from Los Angeles. I was kind of a computer guy, and I had to figure out how to wrestle the 10-well dock back to shore and tie it back up and secure it. So there were all kinds of adventures getting used to being in the wilds of the Ozarks.
Well, that's a beautiful area. The Lake of the Ozarks is a beautiful area. We used to go to Tantera all the
Tantera,
time.
now
And,
Margaritaville.
yeah, now Margaritaville. And I always, because we had a lake house down at Table Rock Lake. It's a beautiful lake, too.
Yep, right.
For all the people watching, that's down in the Branson area. You need to come and see Branson and come and take your kids. And it's great for older folks, too. It's a veteran, very friendly area. And so... But in a way, yeah. So those lake homes, we've had a lake home for a long time too, and so they're beautiful. But I never was brave enough to own my own dock. I always had my two boats. I was paying a lot.
I wasn't brave to own the
I was
dock. It
paying
just-
a lot of money. I
It
was
came
paying-
with the mobile home park.
yeah.
But you had a building up there.
Well, as the mobile home park started to wind down, I got involved with a friend of mine doing computer consulting, being a computer guy. And we decided, Margaret and I decided to buy a building. And we acquired an old, I guess you could call it a shop building, but it was a big one. It was 6,000 square feet. And we decided to turn it into a museum or a science center. So my first forming of the Orion Center was as a science center, because I had gotten really convicted by the creation and evolution issue. And after becoming a believer in the 80s, I spent a lot of years learning all of the science of that. And we decided that that was going to be our tithe from all the wealth we acquired in California. So we started the Orion Science Center.
And it was a 501c3.
It was, and we did that for 15 years. There's a whole bunch of stories we could talk about the Science Center.
But what's interesting is that as private persons, you made the decision to, I don't want to say donate, that's not the word, to dedicate a portion of God's generosity to you
Right.
into teaching the scriptures to anybody who wanted to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of, we had always tithed,
Yeah.
but when I was a working guy, obviously tithe was just a percentage of my income. But when I left the company in LA, they had given us a lot of stock options. So all of a sudden I had this huge pile of money. Well, huge for us, not huge for some people. And we decided we had to tithe on that. That sounds wrong. We didn't have to tithe on that. We decided we wanted to. We wanted to give something back and try something completely new. So the Orion Center has always been doing these completely new things. I think I made a joke at our last meeting, Mary, about being like Elon Musk, but without the money.
You did.
So
Interest. That's the thing, is that it tapped all of the talent that you had accumulated over your life, not just accumulated, but developed.
yeah.
And
Yeah, even the Science Center, I used a
Yeah.
lot of my computer tech knowledge to
Yeah.
create my own exhibits.
and that's the thing about God, nothing goes to waste.
Nothing goes to waste, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, Bill, I saw when I was taking notes, and I don't know what order all this stuff happened. So we're talking about the Science Center, but I also saw that you had a creative museum. You and Margaret
was it.
developed a creative museum.
Yeah,
And
when we started the Science Center, we didn't call it a creation museum because, from my perspective, all science is creation, that God did everything. That was probably a strategic error because we probably would have done better in rural Missouri if it was a creation museum. So around 2012
But then the public
or
schools
so,
might not have come. You had public schools coming.
I had about 10 or 12 public schools coming to the place.
Uh-huh.
So we did something that I thought was pretty clever. We had exhibits that demonstrated evolution and creation side by side and explained the differences between them. So people could come in and really learn what the issue was. And I always felt that if you thoroughly explained evolution, people would reject it because it's just not a very sound doctrine.
Well, no, it's an ideology.
It is.
And it takes an act of faith to believe in it. That's what's not being taught.
Yeah,
in the
Christians
schools.
start with faith in God, and evolutionists start with faith that there is no God.
That there is no God.
And
That's
neither is
exactly right.
provable
And
scientifically.
Well, mathematically, the statistics are very much against this lightning suddenly hitting chemicals in the pool of
Yeah.
whatever and then creating life.
After all of these decades, this idea of evolution being the story of life doesn't have an explanation for origins.
No.
right.
Still trying to figure that out. So
But the humanists need that theory in order to continue teaching humanism in the schools. And so humanism, socialism, and Darwinism all have to interface together to create the worldview that's being taught. And all of it is antithetical to God and the Bible.
right.
Yeah.
And all of this conversation is kind of very intellectual, and I think the general public kind of
well, we're
got
talking
a-
science museum.
Yeah, I know. But I think the general public generally thought, when they came to my science place, they learned all of those things, but they mostly wanted to shoot water balloons at dinosaurs outside.
Yeah.
It's Lake of the Ozarks is an entertainment area.
Sure, sure.
So we had fun stuff for them to do outdoors. We had zip line rides and We had a trebuchet that launched water balloons and all kinds of
Well,
fun
you could
stuff.
teach physics.
We did.
Yeah.
It taught physics, but it was mostly fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, that is absolutely interesting. Now, I also noticed you had a community center that,
Yes.
that you were developed a
We,
part of.
we got to a point, like I said, it was mostly fun, and I kind of had this intellectual turn of mind. So I kind of got to the point where I thought, is this really honoring God, or is this just a tourist trap? So we took a step back and we decided to sell the place. This was in 2015 or so. And we actually did sell it, but we had to carry a note. And it didn't work out for the people who bought it, so they gave it back to us. And at that point, we had to decide, well, how to make use of this, because obviously God wasn't done with it.
Right.
So we thought maybe something more down to earth, like a community center, was the answer. And that's actually the first time I met Mary, because she came and spoke at our community center.
Yeah, I was invited by an activist group up there to
Oh,
come
good.
talk about the Common Core and
Yeah.
social emotional learning and that sort of thing. And little did I know it was Bill's community center.
Yeah.
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 And I think that was probably close to when COVID happened.
Yes.
But during the COVID years, if you recall, Lake of the Ozarks was pretty resistant to shutting down.
That's why I love them.
So our community center didn't shut down. So we were always one of the few public places that was open to meetings. So we really thrived during COVID.
That's really good. And then I also noticed you had a radio station.
Yeah, Mary mentioned the activists. We had a lot of political groups meeting at the key gathering place, is what we called it. And out of that, somebody stepped up and said, gee, there's this radio station for sale in Osage Beach. And it had been for sale for years. I had heard about it years before, but what did I know about radio? So she bought it for us, basically. It was the president of the school board in Camdenton. And she put up the money to buy it. And then I set about trying to figure out how to do radio, never having done it before. We didn't have a studio.
Another science experiment.
Yeah, it's just you got to learn things. So I just got on the internet and found out all the different places that did streaming of internet things and figured it all out. And we started a radio station, and it's still running today.
Bill just rebuilt the website for the Conservative Americas
Oh, really?
Club.
Good.
Yeah. So he's jumping right in there, using his talents for us too.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about gathering information over the years is some things are easy. They look hard because people haven't tried it, but some things.
Well, and it
are
has to do
easy.
with interest. To tell you the truth,
Yeah.
there's just some things that are hard for me because I'm not interested in them.
I agree completely. Whereas I like doing things that don't involve human interaction. Okay.
So hey, you know what, Bill? I think you and I'd love to just be able to sit down and visit with you sometime, not on the air, but just visit, because I love science. So I'm a science
Yeah.
guy too,
Okay.
being a pharmacist and taking all the chemistry and biology and every physics. I love all that stuff.
Right.
So I think you and I, the only thing that I'm different than you, I'm the dummy in computers. Okay, so I always have good people behind me that take care of all the computer stuff. But I can handle people and I can handle science.
Yeah, well.
But anyway, so let's get started. What is your nonprofit? It's kind of from the beginning to where we are today. What are you trying to accomplish? What's God told you to do?
Well, I'd say the message that God gave us a few years ago really has to do with unity. Because, I've been a Christian since 1976, and we've attended a lot of different churches over the years because we've moved around, not because we were unhappy with any of them. But it always struck me, excuse me, how many denominations we have and how easy it is for church people to divide over doctrinal things and theological things and just decide to start a new church because they're not happy with a concept that was taught where they were. And I think the same thing is true of political conservatives. conservatives in the political realm divide over all kinds of things. And meanwhile, the enemies of us, if we actually our mission field, are very united. They're very, if you look at the left wing of the Democrat Party, they're, even if they disagree among themselves, they agree to agree on the basics.
Even if they're
of getting
wrong.
things done. Even if they're wrong, yes.
Yeah.
So,
And in that unity, they do a lot of background work and setup before they actually launch an attack. And for example, they took a long time to set up their people in the judicial system. And then when Trump got elected, they had a whole series of court districts and judges and lawyers,
Like roadblocks.
law firms,
Roadblocks. They had
all
roadblocks.
set up, ready to go, right, to challenge anything Trump did. And then
Yeah.
when he was, I will say, when he left office the first time, it wasn't just challenging his policies, but challenging him as a person. Those people were in position because of the organization, which is what conservatives, what you're saying, conservatives fail to unite and take advantage of.
Well, Bill, last night when I read about unity, I circled it several times, and our producer, we're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid in Acts Ministry, and that's one of the things I love about Acts Ministry. Unity is the most important word, don't you think, Dennis? With Acts Ministry,
Yes.
it is the most important word.
It's non-denominational.
Non-denominational. Go ahead.
Dr. Collins said last when he was on.
Unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit. That's
Yeah.
that's the motto.
Yeah.
and look for the things that unite us rather than the things that divide us.
That's right, and you're exactly right. I've thought for a long time about, and I've gone to a lot of great churches, from Baptist church, that's what I was raised in, to Presbyterian church, now to Assembly of God. I've gone to Methodist church. I've gone to different churches over my lifetime, and they've all been good in ways, but honestly, they're so segregated. They want to make sure nobody gets their members. And they do good things out there, but they're always watchful. And if they would work better together, the churches would, just like
Absolutely.
Acts Ministry believes and like how you believe, then we would be better off.
Sure.
So, I know Acts Ministry, if you believe in God, Son, and Holy Spirit, we might be able to help you. We
Yeah.
might be able to have you be part of us, and we be part of you.
Sure.
That's the common thread, I believe. But a lot of churches, they're just so caught up in making sure that they keep their members and keep their members growing. They aren't that helpful to other
Yeah.
churches.
I certainly saw that a lot more with the Key Gathering Place, because our concept was for Christians to come there and do events and do teachings, and for it to be a place that would cross denominations, where anybody could come and see something without going to a particular church. And a lot of the churches were very resistant to that, because they were afraid, well, if I send somebody to go see somebody who's from that church, then the audience might like that person and they might move over to that church. And, I had pastors telling me that directly. It's not something I'm just speculating
No.
about. And I completely understand and sympathize.
But that's territorialism.
Yeah, but I still completely understand and sympathize.
Okay.
So it got to a point where I realized that what we were doing really, at least at the Ozarks, didn't seem like it was able to unite churches. It seemed like there was this third wheel that everybody tried to avoid. So again, if anything, I stick to things too long. I stuck with the Science Center past the point where I thought it was really honoring God. And the same as I decided with the gathering place not to do it for 10 years when it's really over after 3 years. So we decided that a good strategy was to sell the real estate, and have a revenue stream that could finance both the radio station and this new thing called Key Media. So the good thing now is I have lots of income. And I didn't have to go to the government for it, and I didn't have to do a lot of fundraising. Actually, God kind of provided it by allowing this real estate we had, which we bought for a very cheap price 25 years ago, to gain value and give us a revenue stream. So again, it's just like what happened when I was a working guy and they gave us stock options.
Right.
All of a sudden you have funds that you didn't know you were going to have.
Well, so you've been very wise, and God's led you through that wisdom. So what's Key Media? What does that do?
Key Media? Key Media is another one of those experiments. It started out as, the way I started is I was listening to my friends who all had different people on the internet that they were watching, listening to, and they were all guided in a slightly different direction. I mean, some people got all excited about chemtrails and they followed everything about chemtrails, and another person was concerned about socialism, which is something to be concerned about, and they got consumed by investigating into socialism and how to resist socialism, and some people got into health issues. And there was nothing wrong with any of that. All those are good things to look into, but everybody seemed very fragmented, all running in a different direction. All essentially Christian conservatives, but having a different specialty area and never bringing it back together, because all of those things are related, but people don't bring it together and figure out how to employ all of that knowledge for the general good. So I thought I'd start Key Media as a place that gathered together what I thought were the best things. That sounds kind of...
He has an awesome website.
Yeah. So
Now, what is your website?
KeyLoz.com.
I did see that. I saw that, and I actually wrote that down. So that's your website.
Yeah, and I had a friend at the lake help me get that started. But we found something very interesting. We found a what is the term for it? A plug-in that could gather information from YouTube primarily and draw it into this website so that every content creator had a section on the website, and it was always refreshed with the newest episode.
Tell them what some of those other sites are that you bring in.
Yeah, well, I bring in wall builders, if you know David Barton down in Texas.
He's great.
Boy, you're putting me on the spot now, Mary. What do I have on my website? I have probably 30 or 40 different contributors. I have Robert Kennedy Jr. talking about healthcare and what he's been working on. Donald Trump is on there. Your show is on there.
Very good. Very good.
So everything from very local things to national things. Charlie Kirk is on there. I really enjoy Charlie Kirk because he's very unapologetic about the Lord while also very knowledgeable about the foundation of conservatism.
Yeah, and he had a revelation moment too. He was trying to fight the good fight of the conservative movement just through political strength, and he realized he couldn't. It wasn't going to work. It had to include a revival, and he became very, very critical of churches that were not preaching about being salt and light, because government is one of God's tools for a civil society. Civil society is not atheistic. It is God's idea. If you don't have a civil society, you have an uncivil society. And so you can find that in the book of Exodus, how it was all set up.
Yeah, we have this thing called the Great Commission,
Yeah.
which is to go out into the nations and teach everything that I taught you, was
Yeah.
what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And we have I've been in the church a long time, and we all go through stages of life. And when you're a new believer, you're just trying to get saved. And after you've learned how to be saved, then you want to help others be saved. But a lot of people just kind of relax after getting saved. And it's a wonderful experience to be in a church surrounded by believers and have that support system, and it can be very comforting and very comfortable. So a lot of churches kind of lose their steam when it comes to reaching out to the world and to the culture around them. And what Charlie is teaching basically is you got to be involved in the culture. You can't
right.
just complain about what's happening with all the transgenderism and all the things that are taking place. You actually have to be salt and light in the world and do something about it.
You know, Bill, one of the books that I try to give away, I'm gonna get a book. Dennis just gave me a book. It's called Halftime. I have probably given away, 50 copies of Halftime. I usually go to places that has used books, and I try to buy as many copies. But I bought new books too. Halftime is a book that, and you're doing exactly, and Mary and I and Dennis, we're doing exactly what this author said to do. You got your life, you had your children, you had your jobs, and you're moving around, and that's half of your life. I thought this was going to be a sporting book because I played tennis and basketball in college, and so I love sports. I love competition, but it's not. It's telling you about your second half of your life, and what are you going to do for God? What are you going to do to help other people? That's the most important part.
Yeah.
And so I just spoke the other day to Methodist Church in Ozarks, where there was about 100 men and women there, and I gave a book away. I love to go around and give these books away, but you are absolutely doing this last half of your life, and you're exactly right. I have friends that got baptized, they got saved, and then all of a sudden they don't go to church as much. Or if they do go to church, they just sit there and they don't really do anything else. And I don't think that's what God wants us to do.
Yeah.
And so I applaud you for that. And I appreciate being in your network of all your shows, because people like David Barton, we've had him in Springfield several times, and Bill Federer. Oh my gosh!
And he's coming back in October.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I've got, my wife says we've downsized our house from on the golf course to a lot smaller house, and Jan says, no, you can't be buying more books. I've got probably 9 or 10 of Bill Federer's books, and I've got some of David Barton stuff and things, and Jan says, no, we can't buy more books.
Yeah, when I was rearranging the house, I had 2 offices in the house when Tom was alive, but after he passed, I turned what was my office into my library.
Yeah.
And then took over what was his office. They're side by side. And I get it. You need a room for your books.
Yeah. Well, we just we went from 4,500 square feet down to 1,800, and some things you just can't keep.
You can't part with the books with all your notes in it.
I saved as many books as I could, but she says, look here, you don't have more room for more books. So every time I go someplace,
So build an addition.
But anyway, no. So that is absolutely great.
Yeah, I actually prefer to digitize things, because then I can cut and paste and use it in presentations. And
well, I'm going to check your website. I'm going to check your website out, because I think that's just going to be awesome.
Yeah, it started out as just media, is where I was going with that, but then we decided we really need to make it a useful site, not just we all consume lots of information, but we don't really do much with our information. So I added a bunch of a take action section to the website, where you can do things like look up what's happening at the legislature. We have our own little social media problem solving section, where you can make a comment and have people comment about it, at least as soon as people start commenting more. I found a place, let's see, what was that? Citizen Portal. Do you know about Citizen Portal? It's a website that gathers all of the video streams from all the governmental and quasi-government agencies around the country, and you can actually see a video of every kind of a meeting going on in Springfield just by going to Citizen Portal. So instead of having to attend all those meetings physically, they're all in one place.
Yeah, see, I like that. See, when I became presiding commissioner 2.5 years ago, It was one of my very first projects. We are live on YouTube every commission meeting. When there's 3 commissioners in a meeting, we're live. That way, 98,000 people in our county can watch us if they want to.
Yeah.
And 2
then-
is a majority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so honestly, transparency is one of the most important things
Yeah.
that we can do in government. We
And-
have a tremendous transparency portal for finances. Every dollar that comes in our county, every dollar that goes out every day, you can see it. You can see
Right.
every different department of our county and see where the money's going
Yeah.
and where it comes from. And so I think those are things that I've made improvements in, like what you're saying, so important.
Yeah.
So important.
And Citizen Portal uses artificial intelligence to actually dissect every video into topics. So it'll pull out clips and saying this discussion was about such and such topic, and then it gives you a written transcript of everything.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
people who can't take the time to watch a 2-hour video can watch each of the 10-minute segments they care about.
And you can take the transcript and do a search of terms.
Right.
And then just go right to the word you were looking for.
Wow. So, folks, keyloz.com, KEYLOZ.com. You can
Okay.
check that out, okay? If you're in Missouri or any place else, you can check that out, right?
Right.
And that I would highly, I'm going to check it out. I highly recommend that you do
But
that.
here's the important thing. Bill is an individual, a private citizen, using his talents in service to others to build the kingdom.
Yeah,
Anybody can do it,
yeah, and that's what
Anybody can do it.
Well,
yes.
and that's
even Bill.
Bill, I tell you what, you are an unusual person.
Yes.
You are very smart, a very strong Christian. You and Margaret, and you are difference makers. I know your wife is involved in this.
Oh, definitely.
Because I will tell you,
She's the one who keeps me straight.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you why. I just want to tell all the women out there, because I absolutely know. My wife is so smart, and in our 43 years of owning 26 pharmacies, my wife was a very integral part of running and then 8 years I was in Jefferson City, I was gone 4 days a week, and she had to stay back home and run the company. 330 employees, 26 stores. So she was busy. But one of the things that I always appreciate about women is, say, Dr. Mary Byrne is so smart. And I asked Janet many times when I was a state rep, those most important bills that we were getting ready to vote on, I would give her foundation information, and then I'd ask her, what do you think? How would you vote? And I'll tell you what, she never was wrong. The vote that she told me that I took, and I might have taken it myself in a way, but I listened to her, I was right every time. I was absolutely right every time. Now, I didn't please everybody, but I'll guarantee you I was right every time. We got something big coming up tomorrow.
Right.
We the biggest commission meeting that we've had in my 5 years there. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of people watching tomorrow, and we'll be full, over 100 people in our commission. That's all we can hold. FAR code says 103. I've snuck in 115 before, but I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow because they're watching. Everybody's watching, but it's a very important topic tomorrow. And my wife and I drove out to where the site is, the Holder Road, and we just parked and watched traffic. And I got her opinion.
The fan is noisy.
Yeah, we might want to turn that off.
Yeah.
We probably should have done that already. I noticed that a while ago. But okay, so now where are we at? What do we want to talk about next? And then I've got to talk about, we'll talk about one more topic, then I've got to talk about sponsors, and then we're going to wrap it up here.
I
pretty
just want to
soon.
tell you, I heard Bill as I was driving from Jeff City back to Springfield through Camdenton. I heard Bill on the radio with his grandson.
Ah,
You were
yeah, with
doing
Dylan.
a
Yes.
little history lesson.
Right.
And tell us about the role your grandson plays in your radio station.
Well, that's interesting. Dylan is very much interested in socialism. He lives up in, what is that place up north of Jefferson City, the bigger city up that way? I'm having a senior moment. Anyhow, it's a very liberal community.
Columbia.
Columbia. Yeah, it must be Columbia.
It's to the west
Yeah, and
of
it's
Jefferson City, but
no,
it is
it's not
Columbia. It's
Columbia.
University Town.
Okay, but anyhow, it doesn't matter. Anyhow, Dylan and I have these kind of debates. I think that's the role he plays.
Okay.
He's not a helper,
Okay.
but he's a very smart young man who is concerned about the state of America, and he's in a very liberal community, and liberals at their best really want to make the country better. They're driven more by compassion than by common sense. And so that's why we have this conflict, because they, a liberal would say, oh, it's just fine whatever your sexual orientation is, because a liberal doesn't look at it from God's lens and what God wants for humanity and what's actually better for us. So it creates a dynamic where you're trying to reason with the liberal from a biblical point of view, and it just doesn't work. It's a complete disconnect. You have to recognize that it's a spiritual distinction between the two of you. And I think that's really what most of politics now is this great spiritual divide. If you look at the two major political parties, Republicans tend to be Christians, tend to have that worldview. Democrats are almost exclusively atheistic. They're actually
they voted God out of their platform.
okay, that would be a sign, wouldn't it?
That would be a sign.
But I, having been in the scientific area a lot, science is very atheistic also. These are people who are driven by trying to reason things out, and faith isn't something you can easily reason out.
It wasn't always that way. It really was a Darwinian revolution there, because the great minds in science
We're Christian.
and they were using the methods of science to pursue truth, because they believed that
Truth existed.
they believed truth existed, and that they would find God's
Through it.
work and his designs in that science.
Yeah.
It was when Darwin wanted to kick him out that pseudoscience began.
And it was actually the people after Darwin who saw an opportunity to get rid of faith in God. So they've created rules in science that you can only, for example, consider what they call naturalistic causes. You can't consider anything supernatural or unexplainable. Nevertheless, they can't really live with it. They have things like dark matter, invisible energy in the universe.
They keep making distortions to accommodate their narrative.
Sure. But anyhow, we're drifting back into science again.
Yeah, there we go.
But so how are you doing with conversations with your grandson? How old is he?
He's probably around 20 now,
Yeah.
maybe 20.
I mean, we just saw what happened in New York just, about 3 weeks ago. We had a gentleman that's a Democrat that's running for mayor.
Oh, he's a communist.
And he's a communist. He
communist.
says he's socialist. He says he's a Democratic socialist. But then the Democratic Party is now thinking about changing their platform to be a little bit more bolder about socialism. They don't want to say communism, but they want to say socialism. And a lot of the young people, I have a feeling that in New York, a lot of those young people, that they wanted the reduced rates on their apartments and state-run grocery stores and stuff. I saw that in Cuba. I've seen that in different places that I've traveled all over the world. I've seen that. That didn't work too well.
No, because it depends on centralized government, which is exactly the opposite of the Constitution and decentralized government. And people keep looking at this as a way to make service provision efficient, when actually what it is a way to rob you of your local control. And we deal with that in education.
Well, hey, I tell you what, let's talk about our sponsors, and we're going to go back to you, okay? So
okay.
we do have two really great sponsors that make this show possible and helps fund Acts Ministry. The first one is Brad Pistow. He is a certified fiduciary financial planner located in Ozarks, Missouri on Farmer Road. His phone number, I hope you have a pencil and paper. His phone number is 417-581 9222. 417-581-9222. I do use him. My family uses him. I have a lot of business friends, a lot of friends that actually use Brad Pistow. He has written 2 books. They're both bestsellers on retirement planning. The first one is Safe Money Matters. The second one is Bulletproof. He is licensed in 12, 13 states. He has associates in all 50 states. He's a contributor to Wall Street. He's a contributor to USA Today and many other journals and newspapers. And then he travels around the country speaking. He is one of the top retirement planners in the entire country, and I'm so blessed, and we are also blessed in Southwest Missouri to have Brad Pistow. And so if you call that number, Lisa's going to answer the phone, and she's going to make sure, and she's also a licensed investment planner, and so is Brad's son. So it's a family deal, and but they are very, very good. And his model is something that everyone wants to live by, and that is you won't run out of money before you run out of your life. That's what a lot of people worry about. They're going to run out of money before they run out of their life. And if you follow Brad Pistow's plans, it doesn't cost anything to talk to him, and you won't run out of money, okay? So he's our first sponsor. The second sponsor is Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia. That's John Whittaker and Aaron Swanson. And Aaron Swanson is a general manager. Both of those gentlemen have been on our show before. We're trying to get them in August to be on our show. Brad Pistow, I'm trying to lock in as the last show for July. And because we've had all these viewers want to hear more from Brad Pistow. He will definitely give you information about how to do retirement planning. So Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia, located at 3525 South Campbell and 2509 South Campbell. There's next to each other, Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia. Across the street is used cars. I like their used car department because they sell certified cars. Those are more expensive, but they are actually the best cars
More
you can buy.
expensive relative to other used cars.
Yeah,
They're not more
yeah.
expensive than a new car.
No.
Yeah.
That in
Yeah.
fact, I'm the guy that's bought my last 2 cars from those guys, and I bought one with 8,300 miles and one with 4,800 miles. I don't buy brand new cars. I buy cars almost brand new, but I make sure they're certified cars and they're going to last me a long time. So that's how I buy my cars from them. So I highly recommend them. They have been in business over 50 years in the Southwest Missouri area, one of the longest family-owned car dealers. And like I say, highly recommend them. I love to have them come on. They tell us all about the car industry and things like that. So that's our 2 sponsors. Make sure that if you go there, you tell them that Changing Times recommended them, and you'll be taken care of. But anyway, now we're back to you again.
Okay,
So
right.
so
I did want to just finish up on that conversation about Dylan,
yeah.
because I think that's another reason why I have such a heart for unity, because in speaking with him and other, I guess, liberal leftists, they have a kind of profound disappointment with the church because they don't see the church as being really active in society. I mean, Dylan used to go to church,
Yeah.
and they don't see the church making a difference. And I think if the church really was on fire and doing great things and helping the homeless and working more diligently when there are national emergencies, then people who are outside of the church would look at it as an asset rather than something that's kind of a vestige of the past. So,
No, I think you're onto that because that's why you're seeing all these young people. Of course, the schools are a lot of this too.
Sure.
It's not just the parents; it's the schools because they've been brought up with. They've changed history, they've changed in dates, they've changed in events and what they call things, and even NICSA, one of our is
And their curriculum shapes the narrative in a manner that favors humanism and socialism rather than a biblical worldview.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're conditioned 5 days a week
Yeah, so we got a lot. Us adults have a lot to actually, and you can't give up. So I know you're not going to give up.
No, and God is
And,
greater, but the church has to do its part. And right now it's comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we so you know what the problem is, and we just have to keep working at it, and hopefully churches will do what they need to do. Schools need to change. Hopefully, maybe schools. Mary's involved in education and the Senate side up in Jefferson City, and maybe just maybe we will take over our schools again, like they used to be. Like when I was going to school and you guys are going to school, our schools were really good back then, and today, not so.
Right.
Not so.
Yep.
And so that's a problem. Well, what else do you want to tell people? We're getting towards the end of our show, but what kind of message do we need to tell people?
I'm not going for a big message. I'll go with a selfish message.
Okay.
I have this thing called keyloz.com.
Okay.
I need help with it. I don't consider myself a leader. I've always been like the number 2 guy, and I'm really good at helping people. But like I said, when I started keyloz.com, I put into it everything I thought was right. And even though I'm brilliant, it might not be perfect. But if I had a team of people could help me perfect it, add some of the features that it needs, make it a real resource for conservatives and for Christians, make it an outreach to the churches. I mean, we can't just, it sounds almost like we complain about the churches at times, but the churches are really wonderful organizations that see their mission as primarily spiritual, and that could be tweaked a little bit. But
Well,
really
read the
reach
book
out.
of Revelation, right? Jesus said, he would always start with the good news, and then he'd say, but I have a criticism for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
All
he
of
did.
those things
Yeah,
about
and
the
he's-
churches, yeah.
Don't be lukewarm. I'm going to spew you out of my mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the best ministers I've ever listened to while I was in college away was a gentleman named Charlie Brown, and he was at Westminster Presbyterian Church, and he would always start off he had a lot of young people from up around the Kansas City area that was maybe like in school, professional schools, law school, pharmacy school, medical school, whatever. And he had some older folks too, but he would always start out his sermon every Sunday talking about current events. He would talk about movies that he knew the movies kids my age was watching. He kind of got us all involved at the beginning for about the first 10 to 15 minutes. Then he went into whatever his topic was on his sermon that day, and people listened. And he by the time I left in my 3 years of pharmacy school up there, he was getting a big group of people coming to his church. That's what we need. We need something that these ministers, I mean, it's great to teach the Bible every Sunday, but you've got to do more than teach the Bible today. Because if you don't hook them in and get them coming back and they're really paying attention, like your grandson and some of my grandkids, it's going to be a hard battle.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Let me ask you this. Do you know Brian Roman? Have you ever met Brian Roman?
Down in the Ozark area.
what does he do?
Well, he's involved in what is it? What's his
Isn't it
group
First
called?
Baptist in Ozark?
Well, I used to go there at First Baptist Church in Ozark, but Brian Roman is now involved down in Branson. So Darren Myers, who we've had on our show, Mary and I have had on our show, he and his wife, they bought the Yellow Ribbon Theater down in Branson, and now it's called the Freedom Encounter Theater.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a
I've been
2000.
there a couple of
okay,
times, yeah.
and
So Brian partners with them.
and so Brian's partnered with him, and he's teaching a constitutional class, biblical constitutional class, and now they've got kids.
That's
They've
offered
got-
through Wall Builders.
Yeah.
Right, we've
Yep.
taught that.
That
yeah.
one.
Yeah, and so that is a fantastic group, and they're starting now a new children's program twice a week for the rest of this summer. So they have some really good things that's going on. So, and you got to reach those children because they're not being taught that in school.
Right.
And so that's really important. And that's why I tell grandparents and parents, it's your responsibility. Take those kids and take your grandkids to someplace like that.
Yeah. The other thing we've added to Orion Center is we've added my daughter created a school. It's kind of a hybrid homeschool school called Wisdom Academy. So
Wow.
she's joined our group too to get some
Okay.
younger people into things.
Well, yeah, that's great.
And I actually taught history and economics last year. So to junior high and high school kids.
So your whole family is involved in outreach and education.
Yeah, I have another daughter.
Not so much.
No, my daughter Rebecca she does great things, but she's a working person. She's at that stage of life where she's working, but she has an interesting lifestyle. She works out of an RV. So she and her husband travel around the country, and she works through over the internet to do her job.
Wow.
So,
Well, that's interesting too.
so it's her own kind of ministry, but Rebecca is a much more practical person.
Well, see, the homeschooling is extremely important. I mean, obviously, we got more parents and people homeschooling today than ever before, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, we're not getting everything. The parents and grandparents don't think we're getting as much as we need for our children, and so there's a reason. I will have a minister on very, very quickly in this summer, and they're going to start in Sparta, Missouri, a homeschool at the church, 30 students that will be first graders this year. And that's just amazing in a small
Well,
little
and then
town.
that's how you develop the whole school system. When your first graders graduate, they become second graders, and you bring in a new crop of first graders,
Right.
and that's how you develop the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
it's
All right. Well, hey,
very-
we've run out of time, but Bill, I tell you what, you and Margaret and your family are difference makers. I want to get to know you better, so I may be calling you up and seeing if you want to go out to dinner.
That sounds great.
I'd love
Yeah.
to do that. I want to learn more from you and see if I can help you too. So anyway, we appreciate you watching today. Be sure and share this show with other people. Let them know what we're trying to do. We've got great shows lined up the rest of this month. And of course, we have Axe Fest coming up. So I guess I better make sure I talk about Axe Fest next week because it's coming up.